Welcome to Circus and Changing Realities 2020, a series of virtual dialogues about the future of circus. I'm your moderator, Jonathan Lee Iverson. The wake-up call for inclusion is CircusTalk's response to the equality crisis around the world. Today, we intend to explore the geopolitical characteristics of inclusion, be it racial, ethnic, or gender. We circus people see no difference between races and religions. Those were the words of ringmaster Adolf Althoff of Circus Adolf Althoff. He made the statement while being honored by Yad Vashem in Jerusalem for his celebrated heroism during the cruel reign of the Nazi regime. Jewish circus artists were a significant part of German circus culture for generations. As a result, circuses were purged of their Jewish performers, causing many shows to fall into bankruptcy. In fact, there were a number of circus companies and their owners who aligned themselves with the Nazi Party. Adolf Althoff and his show was not one of them. Putting himself and his show at tremendous risk, ringmaster Adolf Althoff employed astounding bravery, wit, and a bit of showmanship to hide and protect Jewish performers in his company and any who sought work with his circus. Said the great ringmaster, there was no question that we would let them stay. I couldn't simply permit them to fall into the hands of murderers. This would have made me a murderer. The current social unrest and outcry for justice and equity that has erupted not only in the United States of America, but around the world with regards to state-sanctioned violence towards citizens, specifically Black people, has reverberated throughout the performing arts and circus community, forcing well-established arts institutions and organizations to reckon with their complicity. Thus, this series of panel discussions, where those of us in the circus space at this most critical moment in time will now dare to honor history's other Adolf, the great ringmaster, Adolf Althoff, and boldly and authentically exhibit the spirit of fraternity, charity, and inclusion for all that the circus industry has long professed. Our distinguished panelists represent 6 continents, including Africa, Asia, Australia, Europe, North America, and South America. Although today's discussion will attempt to address the matter of equity and inclusion in the global circus industry, no one here purports to speak for the collective experience of the part of the world for which they reside. They will be speaking to their specific experience with regards to the circus industry in the context of the part of the world they inhabit. Moreover, this panel will be divided into 2 parts. Each panelist will be afforded up to 5 minutes to present their statement on the inequities on race, ethnicity, or gender identity in their region, and as it relates to the circus industry. At the conclusion of the panelists' presentations, I will lead our panelists in a discussion to elaborate on their perspectives regarding inclusion in the circus industry. I'd like to also thank our panelists who, of course, come from all over the world and who are visiting us from multiple time zones. We thank you very much, and we will honor your time in this live chat. Also, I'd like to thank our panelists for whom English is not their primary language, but they have joined us nonetheless, because this is a very important matter, and we thank them for their time and their effort. With that, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, I give you our panelists. First up, at a very young age, he began attending circus school in West Africa. As a young adult, he ventured to Canada, where he trained in the Montreal Circus School, École Nationale de Cirque. His talents have been featured at Cavaglia Audicio, Cirque du Soleil, La Lanate Productions, Montreal Complemente Cirque, and Zenzani Circus. At present, he resides in Chicago, Illinois, where he teaches acrobatics and performs locally. Representing the continent of Africa by way of Conakry, Guinea, we give you Mr. Alsini Sila.
Hello, beautiful people. My name is Alseni Sila. I am from Guinea in West Africa. I am 29 years older, and I started circus since 9 years older at the school in Guinea. And my parents, my dad, he was a musician, and my mom was a sailor, stuff. And my sister, my brother, they all does same thing. So how I started circus, and my one of my cousin, and he was on the circus show, one of the biggest circus in West Africa called the Circus Baobab. So that was the first generation circus in Guinea. So that he was performing to that company and for many years, and he was touring back and far away in abroad. So then I fell in love in the circus. But my idea is I wanted to performing in a young age, but my family, they want me to continue education in the school. So I fell in love. So I was like, it's okay. I use that as an opportunity, just like train her. So and one day finally I'm getting to the circus. So and I starting my dream. I feel like my dream is starting come true. So I was like, oh wow, okay, this is awesome. So I this is what I want, and I see many people from different abroad, and then one day, and then my cousin bring a circus, bring the company. It's called Cavalia, and the idea is that they wanted to have all in two people in their show. So my cousin, and he was like, oh no, you're never gonna get the two people. There's a bunch of amazing acrobat people. So the Cavalia people just, like when they organize the audition and they see the people, and it was like thousand acrobat, and they don't know what to take. So the idea was the two, and they just took like a 11 people, and they're from the broad, from all the way to Guinea, and they're coming to Montreal. So that started with starting on the touring with the Cavalia, and on training in the Montreal, and uh, and then later, and working with so many different production circuits after my Cavalia contract. So I've been traveling around, mostly of US and Canada. So and now the pandemic, before the pandemic happening, so I was in the show. My last show, previous show was in Zinzani, so I was performing that show, and right before the last week the pandemic hit, and also that I was gonna have another contract before Zinzani last week it's over, and we were planning on touring in Europe with the shows Andorra with the Cirque du Soleil. So we were standby for that. So everything was like just holding. Now I don't know what to do, and even my country people over there, the pandemic right now, so they are training at the beach right now. They're not training on the at the school because they have to practice in social distance, and they can't even climb each other with a bunch of the pyramid, so they have to stay practicing at the beach. So the pandemic over there, it's not too strong compared to here, and also the circus community, it's very small, but now it's become a little bigger because in my generation, and many people are into the circus that much. So, and right now, they are like so much strong each other. But in this moment right now, there's nothing is going on anywhere. I believe in anywhere. So even though Africa, it's a big continent, it's a very far away, and also we are practicing social distance over there. The pandemic, it's also there. So and we're not doing anything, not at all. And yeah. So and then even here, where we live here in the United States, is the same thing we all know. So everything is in the hall right now, and so for now we're just in standby and just training at home, and practicing also social distancing, and until everything back to the normal. So hopefully the it's gonna back to normal, and then keeping training. So I don't want to lose the hope because I see many things going on in the world right now. So I stay positive and also training at home, and just in case I don't want to lose my hope, my goal. I have so many dreams, so I gotta stay positive until everything back to the normal for now. So
Thank you, Alcini.
you're welcome.
Next up, he studied theater theory in the Taipei National University of the Arts. He is currently the International Affairs Manager and Resident Dramaturg of Formosa Circus Art, a contemporary circus company based in Taipei. He serves as the Deputy Managing Director of the Taiwan branch of the International Association of Theater Critics and as founding committee member of the Circus Asia Network. He is one of the founding creators of the International Circus Forum in Taiwan. Representing Asia by way of Taiwan, please welcome Tyrone Yu.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to say a big thank you for this opportunity to join in this talk. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit nervous since I'm speaking English and also about this topic. And like what Jonathan mentioned, that I will bring a pretty personal perspective on the topic we're talking about today, which is rather complex in so many different ways. But I will try my best. So speaking of racial and ethnic social scenario, I think we all agree we need to look back in history and counting geographic factors as well. For example, West Asia is very different from East Asia. So historically, the cultural representation regarding race and ethnicity are very different. There are more than 60% of people on the earth live in Asia. More than 2,000 different languages are spoken. But even so, the sense of diversity in Asia could be quite unitary for the topic we're talking about today. And I'll tell you why I think of that. That doesn't mean all the culture are the same, but for a long time, until the moment we speak, Asia lives under the Western perspective a lot. Working as an international affairs manager in a Taiwanese circus company, I face this issue every day, which is the exotic image and imagination towards otherness, which we may trace back to the age of discovery in 15th century. So after World War II, the Western culture became more and more dominant in Asia, especially American pop culture. Meanwhile, the exotic image and imagination have been absorbed and digested by Asian people. So, how to act and perform like an Asian has been the endless question for many Asian artists. I call it self exoticness, while the general public might be more familiar with Western culture. And this is exactly what it is like in circus field in Asia as well. When you say circus in Asia, people think about animals, red-nosed clowns, and big tubs. Western circus dominates the circus image, while circus artists in Asia trying very hard to represent their own exoticness. So that is why I would like to interpret the racial and ethnic inequality issue question in this direction and answer like this. As I observed, this is a common situation for different race and ethnicity of people in different countries in Asia. And if we look at Taiwan, where I'm based in, the situation is even more complicated. Taiwan is an immigrant society. 83% of people's ancestors sailed to Taiwan from China since 17th century till mid-20th century. Another 14% of people came with the army of Chiang Kai-shek in 1949 after they lost the battle with the Chinese communists. The traditional Chinese acrobats came during this period too, brought also the traditional acrobatic training system to Taiwan. This is how we have the only national acrobatic school here. Then there are 3% of people in Taiwan, what we call the Aboriginal people, who are strongly related with the First Nation people in Pacific region, including Australia and New Zealand. Also, Taiwan was ruled by Japan for 50 years till the end of World War II. The Japanese lifestyle has rooted deeply in the society since then. So basically, Taiwan culture is a mix of Aboriginal culture, Chinese culture, Japanese culture, and Western culture. But what's most intriguing is that for a long time, the traditional acrobatic performance is used as a cultural diplomacy tool, competing with China since 1960s or 1970s. Until today, even the company I work with would still be commissioned by what we call Overseas Community Affairs Council to perform abroad, representing the cultural image of Taiwan, including the ethnical characteristics, which may not be an authentic cultural behavior, but with beautiful add on some color or dress to identify different race of people in Taiwan and with Circus.
Thank you very much, Taiwan. Thank you very much. This panelist has distinguished himself as one of the circus industry's rising stars. Drawing from his Aboriginal heritage, he founded Na Dinang, correct me if I'm wrong, Na Dinang Circus in 2017. He was awarded the Best Emerging Circus Artist at the 2018 Melbourne Fringe Festival and was also celebrated as the Youth Representative at the 2018 CircusTalk at the Sydney Festival. As a current student at the NICA, the National Institute of Circus Arts in Melbourne, he is ensuring that he upskills while he tours, creates, and develops work. He is a current member of the Circus and Physical Theatre Advisory Group, representing Australia by way of Queensland, the Waka Waka Man, Harley Mann.
Thank you, Jonathan. Before I start, I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm on the lands of the Bunurong and the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations in Melbourne. I pay my respects to their elders, and I extend that respect to the First Nations people of all the continents and all the lands that everyone is gathering on, and understanding that they were the first people that were the caretakers of the land. I also wanted to do a visual description to make this video more accessible. I am a early 20 male with brown hair, wearing a black hoodie with a white background. That was a great little intro, Jonathan. Thank you. Yeah, so my name's Harley. I am an emerging circus artist. I work with a couple of companies in Australia, including Cassis, who have a show called Chasing Smoke, which is an all Aboriginal casted circus show. I also am a student at NICA, which is our national institution, and I have my own little company, Najanang Circus. You were almost there. And I guess looking at that question that we've been sent, the root cause of racial and ethnic inequality, representation and inclusion in your region, and how that affects performing arts and specific circus arts. So I find in Australia, this is all very general and broad, and I'll go through a lot of content within 5 minutes, so I'm not sure how accurate I'll be, but the main reason for these sort of issues I find is colonization and colonial mindset. So Australia was colonized by the British, and as a result of that, the Aboriginal people of this land were raped, murdered, stolen, and then we were tried to be bred out. So they introduced a democratically elected government program that was designed to breed out the genes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And because of that, we now only make up 3% of the Australian population. And I think this number is reflected in all the industries within Australia, and that doesn't exclude the arts as well as circus arts. Because of colonization, we've built systems and structures designed intentionally and unintentionally to remove power, autonomy, leadership, and representation from people who aren't a part of the dominant culture. We've made a world where First Nations people and all sorts of disenfranchised people are oppressed and controlled through exclusion. This system breeds racism of all sorts, conscious, unconscious, institutionalized, and systemic. And this racism has found its way into the arts and has led to a lack of engagement from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The University of Western Sydney estimated that 40 to 45% of Aboriginal adults suffer racial discrimination, and 28 to 40% reported being subject to repeated racial vilification. I think access to academic education has been the mantra for a successive oppressive government colonized mindset, and they've used education as a tool to remove power from First Nations and other sorts of disenfranchised people. And within Australia, we've attempted to find funding and ways of trying to close this gap through education, health, economics. But as we all know, the arts, I think, around the world is underfunded. And in Australia, it's the same. And that comes to, as well, closing the gap. And that's the same in circus arts. I'm not sure what it is internationally, but in Australia, circus arts is very expensive. You can't be a part of the circus here if you don't come from a middle class socioeconomic background. There are a lot of fees and tuition fees that come along with all the training and the work that comes into being a circus artist. And I think when we start to move into taking circus out of the community's hands and moving it into becoming more structured and institutionalized, we start to see this same sort of racial prejudice creeping their ways into our community. And we find that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, again, are marginalized by this colonial system and the white privilege that's associated with it. I found, for me personally, in this sort of experience, that this happens quite a lot. Moving into NICA, for example, when I was accepted into the course, I struggled with this, with a lot of people saying that, that I only got into the course because of my ethnical background, and I got that position because I was Aboriginal, and never credited the merits that I felt that I had achieved. I think institutionalizing circus is where we're starting to find a lot of issues with racism and segregation and a lack of inclusion. And I mean, we could talk about this for hours, but I'm curious to discuss how we can push the form back into the hands of the community and away from big structures and rigid walls that prevent us from being inclusive and accepting of people.
Thank you very much, Harley, and apologies again for butchering your company's name.
Oh, good.
Our next panelist is the founder of Dynamics, a social enterprise in the United Kingdom, dedicated to inspire and empower people through wheeled sports and circus skills. A native of Malawi, he immigrated with his family to Northeast England as a child, where there were very few African families in the region. He is a recipient of the Culture's CIC Taste of Africa Award and has made it his mission to see young people be properly represented. Representing Europe by way of the United Kingdom, we give you Rico Jack.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the presentation so far. Really nice to meet you all. I feel honored to be part of this panel because of who you are. I'm not going to do your usual pleasantries to everyone else, but the people that I have met, I'm only here because I'm encouraged by those people. And from what I've heard about you guys, and from what you've said yourself, I really respect that, and you should be proud of yourselves. And I'm proud to be part of this team. So my name is Rico. I was born in Malawi. I'm very, very proud of that. I haven't, they call it naturalized, when you give up your indigenous passport and take on a new one. I haven't done that. I've lived in the UK for nearly 37 years. And I came here as a child, so I had no choice. I was 10 years old. I was told all sorts of lies about the UK, like, you know, that old saying about the gold, you know, pavements that the Caribbean people were told the streets are paved with gold. No such thing, obviously. But the people weren't as nice as the ones that I'd met out in Malawi, because my stepdad was actually a British guy who married my mum out in Malawi and brought us over here. And he was, you know, a lot of the European people who we interacted with, we came from a middle class background. He was just like them, respectful, well educated, I suppose. Although he came from a working class background and he was a road builder, he seemed to know about the world a bit more than the average Malawian and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it seemed to be very open-minded, and you know, I never ever got a sense of being othered by European people, but especially my actual stepdad. He became my stepdad. That doesn't mean it was a rosy, you know, upbringing. My stepdad was an alcoholic who beat my mum. My mum is mixed African and Asian. And now, as an adult, looking back on that, the connotations of a white man beating a dark-skinned woman, you know, just you know, it's quite a troubling, you know, thought for me to think of that. So, growing up in a domestic violence environment that I can now see politically as even more wrong than your normal domestic violence, did a bit of a thing to me where I felt this fire growing inside me. I felt that I needed to express myself. I needed to make sure that I wasn't just standing for whatever was happening in front of me unless I was on board, unless I was part of it and happy to be 100%. And that's led me to build this small organization that we call Dynamics. Dynamics has been built with no money, pretty much, right? We've recycled, reclaimed, and reused, you know, all the government slogans that you hear about, you know, having a greener earth and all that kind of thing. We actually did it because we had no money. And it was the Malawian in me that said, you use what's in front of you. You don't whinge about it. We call it whinging, or whine about it. And you get on with it. You have to use what you have. So we did that, and that grew very slowly at first. It grew bit by bit, and then all of a sudden it just went boom, and we got a much bigger space. We've got 8 acres of land in a city central location. So it's not in the heart of the city, it's in the city centre boundary. And we're right next to Newcastle city centre, within 5 minutes walk. And having 8 acres of land, I've been able to build a motocross track, which when I was a young person, we used to mess about with motorbikes. But we were never serious because we came from a working class background. And, you know, like someone said earlier, we didn't have the finance to follow these pursuits. You know, I didn't have a dad who was going to take me and a you know, £7,000 motorbike to, you know, 20, 30 miles away to practice every weekend. You know, so I never became a serious motocross rider. But when I became the CEO of what I now run, I thought I'm going to do whatever I have. You know, I'm going to use whatever I have to do, whatever I want to do, and what other people want to do, which is normally how I work, in the sense that someone will come up to me and say, can we make this happen? And my eyes will light up, and I'm like, right, we need to try and find a way. So I built a skate park, and I'm not a skater or BMX rider. I found a bunch of people who had a problem, and I thought, well, we should fix this problem. And 20 years later, I'm still here, right? I've built all sorts of stuff that I never thought I'd be able to build. I was actually in a circus in Mallorca one year in 2005. Never thought I'd be in a circus. You know? And then when I came back, I started teaching people what I had learned. So that's one of my traits as well. And I suppose it's that need for expression that I felt as a young person that was formed with this kind of pressure, or in this pressure cooker that formed the fire that comes out in this kind of creativity that I have. So I don't look at what is stopping me from doing it so much. I look at how is it possible for other people to do it, and how can we make it happen. And because of that, I've actually had the honor of having Circus Zambia perform in my building. Now, these guys are from Zambia, which is next door to Malawi. I've actually got family in Zambia. So imagine I'm still a 10-year-old little boy here, yeah, trapped in a 46-year-old man's body, all right? And I had some of my fellow Africans performing in my building, yeah? That was such an honor. We've also had another group from Malawi, actually, and they have a base in the UK as well, called Billy Manquet Arts. They performed in our building. They did a play, a Shakespeare play, The Tempest. And I'm just like, you know, like this fire is just like really taking a hold and really making me feel that no matter what happened before that point, that I experienced the pleasure of having these amazing people, you know, prove that what I did was right. No matter what happened before, I can't use that as a kind of as a justification for victimhood or anything like that. What I can use, though, is that if you want something and you see it and you go for it, there's always a way to achieve it. Because if other people have achieved it, they had to struggle just like you are. So that's how Dynamics is born. That's how Dynamics continues to fight today. I mean, we could lose Dynamics any day. For the past 7 years, we've been in this place of uncertainty where every 6 months our lease is getting renewed, all right? Or maybe it won't get renewed because the developers want to build a shopping mall here, you know, like a retail park, you know? So Dynamics isn't ever sitting pretty, you know? So we're always, you know, on the back foot. But at the same time, we always spring back off that back foot and find new ways to express ourselves. And I think that's my love for circus, you know, the way, no matter what's going on, you know, the doing is why we do this. You know, they actually, the thing that actually connects with us is the doing. They're actually getting that thing that you've been trying to do for a long time. You just train and train and train and do it. You know, you'll perform. You know, performing is a very difficult thing, you know, especially for a lot of us introverts. You know, we're quite shy people, really. And now you're in front of 1,000 people every night performing. And you have to have that consistency and that resilience to keep going. So one of the key phrases that we developed in Dynamics or kind of stole, which, you know, I'm quite proud of, one of the UK prime ministers used this phrase, and I thought, right, I'll take that on. Courage, determination, resilience. That's Dynamics. That's what Dynamics actually means to me.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, you
Thank
have
you
to
very
fight
much.
all those fears. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Rico. Thank you very much. We got to get you on a TED Talk. That was one. Thank you so much. As a clown, he charmed audiences for Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, as well as Big Apple's Circus Clown Care Unit. As an acrobat, he thrilled audiences around the world with Cirque du Soleil. His stunt work has been featured in numerous Hollywood films. He is the author of several books and has received praise for his stirring I Am Black History, Poetry from the Heart, and I Am Enough interactive poetry presentations. He is the creator and host of Philosophy 101 podcast, which can be heard wherever you download podcasts. Currently, he is the summer camp director for Circus, representing North America by way of the United States of America, the one and only William Fortune.
Hello, everybody. It's such an honor to be in this esteemed group of people and to be able to share my story with you. And before I begin, or as I begin, I'm in the dorms of the Circus camp here. And I would like to state that Circus is situated on ancestral unceded land of the Mohegan Band of the Custic Abenaki Nation. We honor the land, its history, and the people who have stewarded it across generations. There may be people coming back and forth as this is an active dorm. My career in circus has spanned over 30 years. And in that time, before I actually started getting into circus, I was a theater person. I'd gone to the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, and I decided to study circus before joining the circus. And in doing so, I learned a lot, because one of the things about circus in America is I did not ever see myself represented in it. That wasn't that we weren't, or that Black people were not represented, but it wasn't a presented thing. And when I give a history of circus, I use contemporary circus, so basing from when the Felds purchased Ringling Brothers in the late 60s, and moving forward is how I judge circus now. I can go back to the history, and the history of the creation of circus is very similar to that of circus around the world. And but with the Felds coming into the circus, or Ringling Brothers, and purchasing this huge 3-ring circus and making the spectacular presentations they had, one of the things that I noticed in my studying of the history is the lack of diversity in an inclusive environment. There are certain highlighted acts like Satin, which is Pamela and Denise. They're the King Charles troupe. There is Tahar, and there are others who also, the Chicago Boys, who were highlighted and showcased, and almost to the point of exploitation. And I don't use that lightly, in that it wasn't exploitation. They were used for what they brought and who they brought into the seats, for the bottom line of circus. And watching as circus changed into more contemporary, with the advent of Cirque du Soleil in the late 1980s, the transition of the Pickle Family Circus from outdoor sidewall shows to theatrical shows, and moving circus into theaters. And I was involved in many of these different productions. And yet, as I was in my involvement, I was usually the only. And as I saw it from my career, I got through the doors, and I often tried to keep my foot in that door to bring others in. Not only others of color, but others who were disenfranchised, who may not have seen themselves represented in the circus world. And to that end, I continue, as I have used my experience in circus to broker positions as an ambassador to Turkmenistan for the U.S. State Department, and working to create an exchange with Turkmenistan Circus to bring artists over and to bring our artists over there as well. I have traveled all over. One of my experiences in the integration of circus is I trained as an assistant to Master Lu Yi in Chinese acrobatics, Master Lu Yi and Master Shaka Min, who had come over from the Nanjing acrobatic troupe, and I had apprenticed with them for 5 years to learn Chinese acrobatics. And if you see me, I don't look like the average Chinese acrobat. Yet I still impart the same tradition that they passed on to me, onto my fellow students. And here at this Circus camp, one of the things I see myself as is not just the director, but as the ambassador to circus, a way to bridge what traditions we all carry in with us, and be able to share them and make them inclusive traditions as opposed to exclusive traditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, William Fortune. A founding member of Chiafundo Mundo, a circus group formed entirely of transgender and non-binary artists. This transmasculine circus artist is also a journalist and historian, dedicated to the study of trans history and the historical erasure of social minorities. He is the author of 2 literary works, Desveladas, a nonfiction book on the lives of Brazilian LGBTQIA+ people, Encantos do Machado, an illustrated fiction book. Representing South America by way of Sao Paulo, Brazil, welcome, Juno Nadal.
Thank you, Jonathan, and hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to be a part of this panel. Well, Um, we cannot discuss racial and gender inequality in South America without addressing the historical legacy of European colonization, the genocide, erasure, and expropriation of indigenous peoples, the long period of slavery that forcibly brought African people to the American continent for more than 2 centuries, and so on. These terrible events fostered the historical background of social inequality that still plagues South America nowadays. South America, which is also known by Abya Yala, one of its many native names. So, racism, cis heteronormativity, and ethnocide were the basis of colonial domination in the Americas. These oppressions still undermine civil rights to populations, mainly indigenous and black, seen as an obstacle to the civilizational project. These are not only individual oppressions, they are also institutional and structural oppressions. It means that, unfortunately, racism, cis-heteronormativity, and ethnocide structure our entire political, social, and cultural system. Social inequality is one of the many spoils of colonialism, and there was never any kind of historical and political reparation for the wounds opened by colonialism. As a consequence, social inequality is also reflected in the arts. Despite the diversity of the population, artistic spaces are still mostly taken by white, cis, and heterosexual men. And well, I'm a transgender circus artist and I'm from Brazil. It must be noted that Brazil has the highest rate of violence against the trans community in the whole world, reporting the greatest number of murdered trans people every year, according to a research made by Transgender Europe Network. In spite of the growing awareness of trans in the public sphere, trans people are still mostly seen as threats to resilient family morals. Many trans people depend on sex work because of the marginalization and discrimination in society, as we are given few other opportunities. The discrimination against trans people is one of the reasons why we founded Cia Fundo Mundo, which is the first circus group formed entirely by transgender artists in Brazil, and as far as we know, in Latin America as well. For us, art can be a tool for changing reality. In our work called Sui Generis, we present transgender issues in a provocative and comical way. If in one hand we found a very good reception from the audience, selling out many of our exhibitions, on the other hand, institutional transphobia makes it difficult for us to find places where to perform. More than once we were hired by important theaters and venues, and then we faced all kinds of obstacles to the execution of our work as soon as it became known that we are transgender artists. More than once, performances that were almost confirmed at renowned venues in Brazil were suddenly cancelled with no further explanation. Due to the fear of displeasing the interests of Brazilian conservative families in the current right-wing government, the main concert halls and theaters avoid and even censor performances that address issues such as anti-racism, feminism, and transgender rights. But the audiences tell us otherwise. It is increasingly necessary to take these debates to the general public. And we and many more wonderful artists we know have tried to do this through provocative and politically engaged humor. We have come to show that trans, non-white people and other non-hegemonic bodies are powerful and valid, and it's past time to reclaim spaces that have historically been stolen from us, art being one of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to each and every one of you. This has been tremendously informative. I feel like my brain has grown just a little bit, especially pronouncing some of the companies here. But you all, this has been really amazing. We're going to move on to our second portion of this discussion, and we're going to further the conversation. So we'll start with Alcini Sila. Your question, sir, is clearly you've enjoyed a successful career in the circus. And along with your obvious talent, you've also had the privilege of world-class training to develop your skills. Now, assuming you are not an anomaly in Guinea, as there are circus schools in West Africa, why do you think other budding artists or developing artists or children are not receiving the same opportunities as yourself?
Thank you, Jonathan, for the question. And thank you again. Thank every single of you guys and being here. I think it's being here where we about to talk about it. It's more important for the society and also our circus industry. And like I said, in based on my experience, what I've been through from the years ago, and Africa, it's a big continent, but in the circus community, where I'm coming from in Guinea, it's a very small. It's not a bigger, and the circus performer artists over there, they are so talented. They're loving each other, and they're working so hard. Like there's no opportunity. This is how they're working there. But how can they get the opportunity there? So I'm gonna take example of myself, what I've been through, because I wasn't there before I get here. So I know how hard it is and to get opportunity from the broad. So in this circus, it's a platform that we can bring people together, and then we can send a positive message into the world, because the world is all about the color. It's all about the color. So for me, on a being a circus artist, I've learned so much, so much, and many performers from different country, different background. But in my experience, since I've been touring and traveling, meeting with the different people in the racial way, working with the circus production company in a racial way, I've never felt someone treating me in this way. And sometimes I'm asking myself why. Maybe it's almost a reason of this, but I see in my eye my brother and sister, and they're struggling, and my question is why they don't get the same opportunity like I do. So, and what are happening in my country, people over there, and they're working and so hard. So people are like us. We the one who are, they can probably trust us, and then this person are the person who's gonna bring us an opportunity in our country. So I'm the one of the person, and my dream is I want to bring opportunity, but how that's gonna happen? I'm not the only performer and from Africa or from the Guinea, but also I'm not here because I'm here just to be here to forget about my people over there, because I know the talent, I know the hard work. I also want them and to make their dream come true. I want to give them a chance. I want to give them their hope. But I wish I have so much power and to do that and to help this country. So what I wanted to talk about, I wanted to talk about this, and to all the circus company who own the company circus production. So these are the something we need to think about, and we need to bring into this world. So if we're doing the circus, we have to give a real message into the world and to these people, and we're doing something and to bringing people together, and to also exploring the culture of different country. And I think it's a good important. But now what I see, and right now many production company, they're working only on the broad and the broad here. So it's hard for them and to go to Africa. So something is wrong with this. So this is something I don't understand. And sometimes I'm asking myself, like, this is something about a color or something. because I'm here. I'm a black, and we the same thing. It's the same thing, and we all do the same thing. So sometimes I feel like it's something wrong with the white people. Just don't bring opportunity to African people, and they know, and the only Allah wanted to work to people who they know, whatever who know me as I say, a circus artist here, and you know my talent, and you know who I am. I'm I have a million of people who are just like me in my country. So I want many of the company, production company, and to give a chance and to work with the African people and to bring them in here and having a beautiful message, a positive thought, and to send to the world because the circuit is all about this. So now I feel like a circus is even the company, and then I see it's something wrong in this society, and it's not like something mess up in this society. It's just like our mind being messed up in individual way. So, and many people are like this. So I want I want to please many of the circus company production and please and then work with the different color, not only black people. My goal is to have many black people in this circus because being here and my experience, I see a lot of many white people or from Australia. From there are too many. A lot of white people are into the circus, so I want many of the company who are the power who can work with the many country continent people, and I want them to include with African circus performance into their show. I think this is something beautiful. So my country there, and it is very big, but the government over there, we now support by the government. They don't care about like being a circus artist in our country, but it's the some all in way and for the performer and to get a to get the way how to get off from the on the hard difficult time in Africa. So what we want to do, we are the person who are dreaming something and then we want to work for it and we work so hard and then we want to our dream to come true, but how we can find the opportunity here, it's hard to find opportunity. You must have a connection and to those people who are like me or maybe some of a friend who been to Africa who know or how hard is in Africa, how talented Africa. I've met so many talented in Africa and they work so hard. They work so hard. Sometimes every time when I go to Africa, they wish to be like me. They wish to be like me. They wish like they can just traveling just like me. These are the people who are better than me, who are more experienced than me. They are so good at it, but they don't get the same opportunity that I do. They
Right.
don't get opportunity, and I want the company, many of like circus production company in this circus industry, and open the door and give a chance and work to many African people. And I want to do that happening. And how can we gonna make this happening? I think it's we have to think if you're doing something like a business, make sure you're doing the right things, and not just for you but also for the world, for the society. If you care about this society, it's good to work with the many color and people in this circus industry.
So if I'm
So
hearing you right as well, pardon me, if I'm hearing you correctly as well, in many respects, you're offering yourself
yes,
to these companies you work with to be,
yes,
listen, they clearly don't have that cultural mindset. So since you know the area, since you know this part of the world, and since they know you, in many respects, you're saying you feel it a responsibility of yours to be that bridge to further their scope on the possibilities and talents that are in that part of the world on the continent, which will be not only beneficial, obviously, to the talent,
correct.
but also beneficial to the industry as well, because in many respects, then we're saying that the industry is actually shortchanging itself by not exploring those various talents on the mother continent in West Africa in particular. Am
Yeah.
I understanding you correctly?
Yes, correctly. That's correct. Exactly. Thank you, Jonathan. So, when you compare to those country, I could say, Ethiopia and Ghana, whatever Senegal is, so it's the same. It's the same. But there's something just wrong with the people mindset, and they just to think a negative vibes to say, oh,
Of
if I
course.
hire black people, and maybe this is not something I'm afraid to hire black performer, a black circus performer. I'm afraid. So this is something I want them to feel more comfortable and to work with the black people, and also because these are the people are going to, if you have a business, these are the people going to make you look good too, and
Right.
make you feel like you not in the races, even you have the company. And
Well,
these are the
it's
people.
interesting. So, like,
Yes,
you're also saying, like, it's a cultural, it may be a cultural impediment they have in their thinking of what Black people may be like, that they're actually not, which
yes,
touches on something you said
like
earlier, William Fortune, about the exploitation of Black acts. They were just
ex-
there as kind of just to bring in Black money.
exactly, exactly. This is exactly. So, Jonathan, this is something that I see, and then many people, company who have worked with me, and they know me as a person in my personality and a respect and a positive attitude. And this is that the many of people in my country. These are the many of people in Africa, not just in Guinea.
Right.
It's all the continent Africa. I see many of my brother, and they're working so hard. And then when you see being living here, what I know in my experience and what I learned and from this world, and then I know it. I know it. It's so hard being a performer and being a circus artist. It is something, it's very dynamic, like very positive,
Of
very
course.
something that you when you do it, and from whatever people is, we are here to healing the world. We are here to show in the love. We are here to show the people, and we all the same. We all together. We all
Thank you.
together.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
if we doing that's the platform we create the circus. Circus about like bringing people together. But if we just doing something, and right now I feel like in this circus industry we are working with individually, and this is not a good. This is not a good. We have to work together, and we have to change this and to work with the many people from different culture. And this is the war about. This is all about the war, and this is
Right.
how we have to work. So I want, please, and I know, and having a business, and it's so hard. It is so hard. But if you want to do something in this society, also good for your company and for your name, we have to work with the many color people. We have to work with the many color people. My country there, like I said, it is very poor country. It is very poor country. And being a circus artist over there, it's not very popular. And the government, they're not supporting any of this, you know.
Right.
But we want to give a hope to people there. We want to give the hope people. My cousin and I, we did a documentary at the movie called Circus Without Border. So which is mean it's also about racial things, you know. And then this, if you haven't seen this circus, many of you guys, you should check out that movie documentary. So it was a dream of two people, my cousin and then his friend, and they were working for Circus for many years. Their dream is to bring opportunity and to their people and give a chance, since they have so much in experience of this circus life, and they want to give a chance because these are the people who are the next generation for us. These are the
Okay.
people these are the people we just going to be like so proud of us and proud of
Absolutely.
them. These are the people we have to and help them, and I think it's good for our society. What are we
And
doing
again, can
in
you share that name? Is Circus Without Borders?
Yeah, Circus Without
Okay,
Border.
can you also, at the conclusion of this, if you can make sure you maybe forward a link or something like that to CircusTalk, because I'm sure they want to promote it. I appreciate this, and I get exactly what you're saying. I want to move on to our next panelist with
Thank
our
you.
question. Thank you very much, Alcini.
Thank you.
In regards to, I think what I'd like to do is move toward Mr. Fortune. I'm going to, of course, continue with everyone else. I'm kind of skipping a little bit, but everybody's going to get their question.
I was trying not to break the system too much, but
Right.
some of what Alcini said, and I think it's some of the problems that we're facing as well, is that it's dreaming. And Rico said, you know, if you can dream it, you can do it. You can bring that into being. And how many, like when I dream in full spectrum. And in all the platforms that I've ever been on, whether it's movie sets or on a stage, a lot of times the producers will dream in what they know. And if they're white male producers, that's what they're dreaming in. They're not looking at a world that is full of color. And when they say, oh, the leading man, they're thinking of themselves as the leading man. When they think of who their partner is, they're thinking of what their partner is in real life. And many of us of color, we see the world of full spectrum, and we're looking at Aboriginal, we're looking at indigenous Pacific Islanders. We're looking at all that world is our spectrum in which to palette to choose from, and that is where that inclusion comes from. Is we're not excluding, we're including in order to create our color. And I just wanted, that was just something that popped up from Alcini and also from what Rico had said earlier, and how we change.
Well, you know, I want to tie something because there was a question I have for you, William, and I think it somewhat connects with Alcini's argument as well. So, I mean, obviously you've had, like Alcini, you've had an incredible career as a performer by any estimation, and you're also an educator as well. And so when we look at the landscape of circus arts and performing arts education, particularly in the United States, there aren't many Black men as instructors or administrators. And so you've done both. So what do you believe is the way forward, not only to encourage the presence of Black artists, but those who will hire them, give them their cues, dress them, light them, set their rigging, educate them, etc.?
Well, there's a lot of things that first have to be undone, and those are the foundations of systemic racism, systemic biases, and also foundational biases in racism. And some of those things we don't even think about. So one of my ways of moving forward, so not forgetting about the past, but stepping into where we are now and how we go forward from here, is how do we get more teachers? Is we teach teachers. How do we get more producers? We teach producers, and it's inviting folks into that circle and seeing people with that spark and saying, I would like to show you some new skills. I would like to pass on some resources for you in which to enhance you. We have, and one of the issues that I have now, and I don't even know how to fully flesh this out, but I'm working on it, and so I'm going to speak it out. And it's the idea of social circus and community circus. There are many social circus programs that are going on. And what is implied in social circus? We have social security, we have social funds that go out, and there's a cap on social. But in community, we're building things. We're not just dividing and saying, oh, you deserve social circus as opposed to professional training. You deserve social circus as opposed to something else where you're gonna build a career. We don't have many social programs in which we build careers on. And so I ask those of you who do have social circus programs, are you doing social circus? And who are you doing that for? Are you doing that for your community, or are you doing that for yourself? Does it please you to do that? Or does it bring up your community to do that? And it may do both. And this is not I'm not judging you for that. I'm just asking you to look deeper into what it is you're doing in that space. Because I've also worked with folks in some of these community circus programs and social circus programs, and they don't see themselves getting anywhere beyond that program. And where I say to them, I said, well, I'm teaching you to be an ambassador for Circus, ambassador for your community, and hopefully I'm passing on my skills as a teacher for you as a student to become a teacher. And I want you to walk out of here because you know you're going to go home and you're going to teach your little cousin how to juggle. You're a teacher. And when we start to use the words of power, empowerment for our students, then we start to see our students rise up, not just staying as students or staying as they're going to do this as a side, but this is part of who they are, and it's valued part of who they are.
Thank you very much. I want to address Taeyong Yu. The Formosa circus art has been celebrated for showcasing Taiwan's cultural diversity and its own immigrant culture. It is also the only Taiwanese circus troupe to have been invited to the Festival of Divignon in France and the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, Scotland. How do you see your company's presence on the global stage in illuminating the identity, contributions, and artistry of Taiwan, particularly with regards to the Aborigine culture?
Thank you for the question, Jonathan. I actually think that when you're trying to represent a certain type of culture or certain type of people, certain group of people in your country, I think where we are doing here in Taiwan, I think we probably should have more deeper understanding about why and how we're doing it. Because as I mentioned, it has been for a long time that this kind of representation being used as a cultural diplomacy tool. And so not every time it is a authentic expression for the people and the people we are represented. Like when the show we brought to Avignon or the show we brought to Edinburgh, it happens they are not that kind of show that we try to directly represent the different race of people in Taiwan, different group of people in Taiwan, but more to show what it's like to be a circus company in Taiwan, but also to show our creativity that we're not really just showing that we're from Taiwan, so we're showing what's the people like here, but to show how do we think or how would we like to celebrate this kind of art form through our body, through acrobats, through circus. So, and this is not only in circus in Taiwan that the artists facing this issue, but also other kind of performing arts genre, like in theater or in dance. People, I think in Taiwan, because the society has this kind of anxiety, like not to knowing who we are. I think this is related a lot with the international society's attitude towards this island called Taiwan. So people are trying to identify themselves through many different ways, including arts. And what a way to know yourself or to have to see a reflection of yourself on stage. And that is normally a very powerful one. But it has become too flat or too easy or too thin to just see easy answers. And like I mentioned, it's very culturally, it's a very mixed kind of culture in Taiwan. And when we try to do a strong statement, saying Taiwan is A or Taiwan is B, Taiwan is C, that's kind of dangerous, I will have to say. And so my personal opinion is that no matter it is with circus or not, what we should be look at it's not about certain type of culture or certain type of political correctness, but more about the human situation, about what's the living situation. What does it mean to be as a human being at this moment in the area that we live? I think it's more about locality. Yeah, if that makes any sense to you all. And thank you for listening. That
No, of course, it makes a lot of
is
sense because I think
yeah.
I think it's an ongoing theme. And correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but I think I've sort of heard that from several others. I think I heard it from Juno, and I've heard it to a degree from Alcini, and of course Rico as well. Where, and really, I think all of you, where it's really about reclaiming your authentic voice outside of. I think everybody can attest to the fact that we've been infected, so to speak, by colonialism. And it's very pervasive in even how we interact with one another, even how we interact within our own cultures, how we've picked up colonial thinking and habits in regards to our own natural way of being. So I think it's very, I actually very much appreciate your your perspective very much, because it really, I mean, it broadens my understanding definitely, and I think it does the same for everyone else, especially with your particular place in the world, where it's not as myopic or as simple. Let's say here in the United States, it's rather black and white, and yet it's not. But with Taiwan, it's a bit more complicated and more dynamic, where, as you said, it's a very dangerous thing to just say it's one way here when it's not. You have a multiplicity of things occurring, which I think makes your circus so tremendously vital to the world stage, because not only are you celebrating the many flavors, as the reviews have said, the many flavors and many dynamics of Taiwan, but you're also going beyond that and just celebrating the full human experience from a Taiwanese lens, So thank you. I really appreciate that very much.
Yeah, I just like to add a little bit more that I wouldn't say we already achieved that, but working in the sector that also like as a arts maker, I would put that as one of the goal that I would like to reach.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, for our friend Harley Mann, you've been quoted as saying physical performance provides a way for people to be less confronted. Thus, you have effectively used the circus as a platform to speak truthfully via the craft about indigenous life and society, the good, the beautiful, the bad, and even the traumatic. What process would you recommend for those who would use the stage or the circus as their platform to give voice to similarly marginalized people?
Thanks, Jonathan. It's a good question. I don't remember saying that, but I believe it. Yeah, I think circus has the potential to be quite interesting in the way it comes across to the audiences. It doesn't necessarily have to be the most literal exploration of identity. It can be more abstract, and I think because of that ability, it tends to be less confronting. I think a lot of the content that we as First Nations people are discussing has trauma, it has grief, it has racism, and that for white audiences is confronting to hear. And a lot of the time, these audiences aren't necessarily opposed to the information. They are allies of the cause, but there's this phenomenon called white fragility, which is starting to appear within a lot of our societies. And so I think the ability to create a safe space for our audiences is how we actually get our message heard. A lot of the work that we make and try to do is we create a a shared connection with our audience. We create laughter, we create joy, just as the circus has always done. And from there, once we've become friends with the audience, then we get our message across and go, actually, okay, take a step back and listen, because these are the things you need to talk about and these are the things that need to be heard. But people don't want to hear that straight off the bat. You know, you can't yell at somebody in the street and tell them your opinions. You've got to be friends, do it over a beer, and they're more likely to listen.
That's always fascinated me with regards to how especially artists of color try to express certain realities to a white audience. And I say that because for at least a good 3 decades, white audiences have applauded works like Les Miserables, the great musical, which really speaks of those very things. And they go away cheering and crying, and everybody gets it. And yet you bring up these indignities, which are very similar to that story. And somehow they're mystified. It's a really interesting dynamic. Rico, according to your organization's website, Dynamics is a community interest company, also known as a social enterprise. We exist to involve local people in developing facilities and services that are lacking in their communities. The legendary American entertainer James Brown once bellowed, "I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open the door, I'll get it myself." So therefore, according to your experience in the United Kingdom and beyond, should efforts that insist upon greater representation in the circus industry and in the performing arts at large be abandoned altogether? Or is it possible to endeavor to build for self as well as continue the efforts toward inclusion?
Great question. I really have a lot of ideas already, and I need to try and stay focused because I could take it into many directions right now. The way that Dynamics was built was that there was a wall and there were no doors. So we kind of felt around that wall, tapped it about, and then we
I'm sorry, Rico, we're having a little difficulty hearing you.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's where I'm sitting. Is that any better? Is that better now? Yeah. You've muted yourself, Jonathan. Okay, well, maybe that's better that you've muted yourself. No offense.
Yes, it's better now.
Okay, so Dynamics tapped around this wall that was in front of it, and we kind of scratched a doorway, and then we put a frame in that doorway, and then we put a door there, and then we were able to go through the door. So there were no indoor skate parks in the Northeast apart from the ones that were closing down. The ones that were closing down were run by self-interested private enterprise families who then, realized that they weren't making much money out of it and moved on to something else. So they were never serious about the skate park side of it, for instance. I got into circus through breakdancing and through skate parks. So I brought all of that together in one place because of necessity, and because it was cheaper to bring all these crazy people together, and they're all going to get on because we're all crazy anyway, and then we're going to do some good stuff, and maybe there'll be some cross-pollination and all of that kind of stuff. None of them knew how to run a business. None of them knew how to keep the roof over our heads. We learned the hard way. And the best way, I would say, where we had to use creativity all the way through to get through problems. We've got a massive problem right now where our team is very split. Me and my partner for 12 and a half, 13 years, are not getting on right now. And there's a kind of a public facing side of us that's been affected by that. But all I can think of is how we've time and time again been able to transcend barriers and be able to go, look, there must be a way. There must be a way. Not somebody help us, because people don't always come to your aid. So there must be a way to find something or someone who unlocks that part of the puzzle, taps on that wall, and creates a door frame to put a door to go through that wall. We don't see walls as obstacles, we see them as learning experiences. So in terms of your question exactly, as I said, I might take in several directions. I think circus to me means resilience. It means, falling over and starting again, and falling many, many times before you actually go in front of an audience, and you don't fall. Like with all, kind of luck on your side, you don't fall. But many people don't see the many times that you did fall. They don't see the many times that you tried this idea or tried that idea and it didn't work. People weren't opening doors, or there weren't any doors there. They don't see that. And in a way, unless they're going to take on that journey, or they're on that journey, they don't need to see that. The show is about what we create after, all of that, adversity, overcoming adversity, and all the obstacles and learning and all of that. All the kind of difficult, dirty stuff happens in the background, and then you see the show, this magic, But I'm sure all of you will agree that the magic can sometimes be overrated. When you go backstage, sometimes it's not the healthiest place to be, and you haven't got everything you need, and now you have to go back on stage. It's like that running a social enterprise. A social enterprise is not about putting money in your pocket per se. It's about doing something that you have to do and then paying the bills as well. So you still make profit, but you take that profit and you pay everybody. You pay a wage. You can have a wage, and you pay everybody, and then you create great things with whatever is left. To me, that's what a lot of business people do, but they don't understand what a social enterprise is, or that actually it's the only way to do business for the future, because we need to take care of each other. We need to bring people together, not against each other. The only competition that we should ever have in life is with ourselves. We should be trying to better ourselves rather than trying to beat everybody else and be the only voice on any platform.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, looking more into your company, I just was very impressed with the fact that Dynamix actually does partner with the local community in helping them actually build or create the things that they need. Actually teaching them to galvanize their own resources, however limited, and make 5,000 out of 5 loaves. Being miracle workers themselves. So it's very admirable. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's our story, and I think it's a lot of our story. I know some circus artists in the UK who have exactly the same struggles that we've been through. And when you meet people who come from a different community than I'm trying to think of the right term. Let's just say the European people of these lands. You find that actually there's quite a lot of synergy and a lot of common ground that you can share, and you can shortcut some conversations. The hardest thing to me has been to overcome the unspoken racial biases of this country. So we live at the center of the British Empire. This country, and where I live, I'm in the north, so it's not as central, but London, for instance, London created the laws that divided black people and white people. Let's go black and white for a second. European people and African people in the Virginia, in the colonies, were getting together. They were already intermarried, because we always have, as human beings, intermarried. And they were getting together in large numbers and creating trade unions and stuff like that. This country stopped that. it created the term white in 1705. That was written into a law, yeah, where suddenly European people were called white. This is where we get white and black. And it's something that I'm fascinated by, in the sense that words mean so much. You know, like the current battle that we're having, which is a tiny little battle within our own organization. And it's got a little bit petty, to be honest, but the words we're using, when you look at them, it's like, yeah, they're very hurtful, you know, very, very hurtful, but they're designed to immobilize you. They're designed to distract you, you know. So when we say someone is black and someone is white, there's a very particular reason why those words were picked. You know, we don't call African people green. I mean, we should call some of them green, you know, they're very green, they're very vegan, and, they eat a vegan diet and all this kind of thing, you know, they're very healthy. I mean, this guy here, this Ghanaian guy, look at his muscles, man, you know, like he's not eating rubbish, you know, it's very green. So we see a lot of bodies like that in Africa, you know, who live off the land, who eat the best food. I mean, their food isn't so polluted with all the chemicals that we have in Europe and the rest of the kind of northern hemisphere or overdeveloped world. I mean, I would call it overdeveloped, please. Sorry, I'm ranting a little bit.
It's very true. I have the gut to prove it. I think I need to go to Africa and redeem myself.
The food is amazing. I can attest to that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Juno, as a member of the transgender community and understanding the history of the transgendered experience in public spaces, specifically as it relates to Brazil and South America at large, what have been the risk and rewards of carving out your own creative and performing space by establishing a circus that is conducive to your community?
Thank you very much for your question. Well, it has been a very challenging but also rewarding task. I mean, we are dealing with a lack of positive representation of trans, non-white people in the media and especially in the arts. So when we retake the power to create our own narratives, it causes very interesting effects. And our transgender audiences tell us often that watching us made them really great impact. And more than once, someone told us that watching our show made them realize they were transgender too and helped them transitioning. And as for the cisgender audiences, people usually tell us that watching our shows made them more open and understanding of gender diversity, and that's really important to us. But yeah, we're dealing with a lot of prejudice and misinformation. We have already received death threats when we went to perform on more conservative cities. We're dealing with, we have a hard time finding places to perform, especially now because of the ideological persecution promoted by Bolsonaro's government. We are dealing with lots of transphobia, of institutional transphobia, as many places, many theaters and concert halls reproduce violences and make it hard for us to perform even after they hire us. We're dealing with a lot of disrespect of our identities and qualifications as circus artists. So it's a lot, but for us, it's totally worth it because we really believe in the value of our work. So we just keep going.
Resilience, resilience, resilience is the theme. I'm here, especially between Juno and Rico. Your stories really are very directed toward that spirit of resilience, which is a trait of the circus. I want to move on to more general questions. I'm curious to know, Juno, has your company been, have you traveled outside of Brazil and performed?
We went to Uruguay once, and it was really, really nice. We went to the Latin American Circus meeting, which, by the way, I'm one of the organizers of this meeting. So it was really nice, but it was the only time we went out of the country.
Okay. So a few general questions, and anyone can say, oh, go ahead, Will.
I just wanted, you had commented on resilience, and one of the things that in my career, hearing, stop whining about it, do something about it, and it popped up when both Taijung and Harley mentioned in the United States, as a Black person, I can want to create my own company, I can want to start things, but the only way I have to do that, right, with the resources that I have, is my own bank account. And there is a history. So my great grandfather, my mother's grandfather, was born enslaved. And up until my mother passed 2 years ago, no wealth passed from generation to the next. So there wasn't any foundation of which I can say, hey, I'm going to pull from my family's resources to start this company. I'm going to pull from my family's resources to create this thing. And the equity there of being able to go to a bank and say, hey, will you loan me this money to do this when I don't even have anything in my account that would back it up, makes it really difficult for me to start my own company. And we have in each of these, in the United States, Australia, Taiwan, we have cultural differences that have disparities in our cultures that sometimes preclude us from stepping forward into that space that we want to get into. And one of the things I said before is when I go and get into where I am as a director of this of a nonprofit arts administration, is I'm opening a door for others. I'm moving folks up into this space, and I'm training people to be into the next level below me, and then to be able to fill the void when I leave. Not because I can give them the financial resources, but I can give them the practical resources in working in that field. And so I'll leave that there for now.
No, that's great. I mean, so in a sense, you're giving them the principles that in a wealth of principles, you're giving them a wealth of principles to use going forward.
Yes, because that's what I have to give. I don't have, I'm not a Guy La Liberté who has a huge bank account that comes from somewhere, and I don't have an ancestral treasure chest that moves me forward either. So what I have is what I've gained in my life, and unfortunately for when my mother passed, what she had passed on to me, very minimally, can help me push forward.
And so, go.
Oh, it's all right if I answer or comment? Thank you for that, William. One of the things that we in the UK seem to be talking a lot about is BLM, or Black Lives Matter. And we're talking about America's history a lot, especially at the moment. I mean, I've looked at it a little bit in my self-training in the past few years, but American history comes up a lot. And what I really appreciate about African Americans is that you're leading the way in, gathering the evidence and the information about the scientists that have created the world around us, about the, the inventors of the traffic lights or the gas mask, or, all the things that African Americans have been involved in inventing, the iPhone or the mobile phone. All of these things make African people all around the world, and I call our people African people. I try not to use the word black. I do use it every now and then, but I think we are African, and wherever we are in the world, we're identified as African, and we should be, linked to the motherland. So people from the motherland have spread across this planet and have still been able to cultivate it, even when they have been bonded in chains. Even when we have been treated with a special, kind of treatment, people call it racism. we have been genocided. The African Holocaust is the greatest Holocaust in human history. We have faced our own Holocaust that doesn't have the same kind of importance put on it as the Caucasian Jewish people's Holocaust, for instance. Which, obviously, in my own personal education, I am 100% sympathetic with what happened in the Second World War. I do believe that should never happen again. But it doesn't matter that I think that. They are actually institutions set up to make sure that doesn't happen again. In the African Holocaust, we have people being traded in Libya right now as commodities. The world is not stopping for that. The world might stop for a kind of a pandemic. There might be a plan behind it, but the world might stop because of this pandemic. But it never stopped because people were being enslaved in Africa. So I really do appreciate the education that people of your part of the world are putting out there. People like urban intellectuals. I've got the flashcards that give you all of the African sheroes and heroes that inspired me to do an exhibition, for instance. So you guys are really leading the way, and I think you've done a lot, even with a very oppressive system that is still operating in the way that the institutions operated 300-400 years ago. People are still being held back because of the color of their skin or redlining or the area that they live in, which also happens here, by the way. And it also happens, and I'm not taking away from the importance of what I'm saying, but it also happens to poor and working class white people here in this country. I live in the poorer part in the north of the UK. It happens there where if you give your postcode, which is the area that you live in, you might not get that job. They'll look at your application and they'll put it on a pile because you're riffraff. You really shouldn't get a job, even though you're going to be a really hard worker, because now you've got a job, you're going to have to work hard to keep it. And we can identify with that, and we can talk about our allies, who are going through a very similar existence, where you are redlined or you are prejudiced against because of what you look like and what you might represent. Sorry, I've said a lot there.
No, I appreciate. Welcome back, Juno. I appreciate that. With regards to our other panelists, and I want to really kind of stay on where you were, what you were presenting there, Rico, because I tend to hear this a lot. I was in a wonderful part of the world, Sharjah, United Arab Emirates, last year around this time, and one of the things I was told I was with so many people of various different nations. It was an arts festival. And one of the things, whether they were from South Africa or the Middle East or parts of Europe even, or Australia, is that they've gleaned inspiration from the African struggle. They spoke of what occurs in the United States, but you see it's very universal with the darker peoples of the world. So I'm curious to know, in respects to whether it's the indigenous of Australia, whether it's the indigenous population of Taiwan, whether it's the transgender community in Brazil, or even in the motherland, do you all find that such communities are emboldened by the struggles of Blacks and Africans, namely in the U.S.? Do you find that they glean inspiration from those struggles? Anyone can answer. We can go with Juno if you want.
I'm so sorry, I lost your question for a minute. Could you please repeat it?
Yes, sure. I was saying, with the transgender community, or really any community, be they indigenous, do you find that those communities have found themselves to be inspired by the struggles of African people, Black people in America, namely? Do you find that they are inspired by those particular struggles?
Well, I really believe intersectionality is the path to social equality. So we learn a lot from other continents, other struggles. We try to be empathetic about that, about those oppressions, as we also fight to be understood in our particularities and yeah, I've been thinking about that. I'm so sorry. There's a lot of noise here. I'll try to focus. But yeah, what I was trying to say is that we try to learn a lot about global history and the history of the social minorities, so that we fight against our erasure. We, trans people and black people and indigenous people, we won't be erased anymore. And we have the right to tell our own stories from our perspectives. That is a fact. We are fighting to make it happen. That's it. I want to listen to you guys.
No, it's understood. I think whoever has that dog, I think the dog is trying to have their voice heard too, and that's fine. Yeah, everybody needs their voice heard. Anyone else?
I would like to jump in response to what Juno just said. I would say I'm a believer of global citizen, and also like what I mentioned earlier, because probably the very unique situation for Taiwan, and the indigenous people on this island have been how to say, they have always been the one who's been ruled by other different group of people from other places. So there was a time the Netherlands and also a group of Portuguese people were colonized Taiwan for a very little time, and after that was the Chinese dynasty, and after that is the Japanese colonialization time. And so throughout that time and until today, that now it's a main Chinese immigrant leading country. And so the indigenous people have been go through that for a long time. And not until very recent decade that this story has been retelling and rediscovered to having let the people here to re-understanding to see again what's really happened here, and so that we can really understand why we are here. And that leads to the ultimate understanding for me. It's called a global citizen. That's no matter it's about the black people or African people or indigenous people, that we all come from some places. And I think maybe it was Rico or William mentioned earlier, it's not about the only color of people that we want to represent, but about all different kinds of people, what we want to see, and their uniqueness we want to find in them, also in their performance or in then like their action as a human being.
I want to
Go ahead,
piggyback on that, what Taizhong had said. Yes, the idea of the global citizen, and having traveled around, being in Shijiazhuang at the Wushao Festival as a guest, going to Ashgabat, Turkmenistan, and being an ambassador there, visiting NICA in Australia, and each of those places. When I arrived, I didn't arrive as a black man. I arrived as a American circus performer, and that citizenship being welcomed in that space, not simply because of the color of my skin, but each of them recognizing what I brought to the table. And in one position, I'm the ambassador. In another, I was a traveling circus performer of a higher caliber, and being welcomed into those spaces. And I think that even within our country in the United States, to create that welcoming space for folks to come in and also to express themselves, not to homogenize and say, okay, this is the one way in which you get to represent on this stage, but taking all those things and flavoring. I like making a stew, you know, like taking the pieces, all the different elements and creating the flavors of that stew by embracing our individuality, our culture, and how that comes together and how we work to communicate with each other. One of the things in traveling as a global citizen is I don't just walk into Ashgabat and start yelling in English and hoping that somebody understands. I don't go to Shuang and start speaking English and going, why don't they get what I'm saying? Is I step into that culture and I say, how can we communicate? And learning a little bit of that language. And I think that when we look into our own communities, we don't think about other people speaking different languages and speaking different ways, both physically, musically, how we express in our writing. All those things are valued. And if we can figure out a way to honor that within each other at home and abroad, then we're going to see an explosion of a world that celebrates each other.
Thank you, William. Harley, and I'm sure you get this all the time. You don't look indigenous. You know, and so, I mean, how have you? And maybe this is a strange question, but how have you weaponized that? You know, being able to really go back and forth within different cultures and really use that to maintain the integrity of the stories of the people you're expressing, using your art to express their realities about. How do you weaponize that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's very interesting. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think on one hand, you're very mobile within communities. You can access, I guess, the structures and the systems that are within the white system that prejudice and exclude people of color and of all sorts of disenfranchised backgrounds. But I think also at the same time, it can be quite isolating, especially in Australia, and from a First Nations perspective, is this idea that potentially your identity doesn't sit within the dominant culture, but also because of generations of trauma and being removed and stolen, you have this lack of connection with your cultural identity as well. So it's this hard sort of balance between trying to connect with your history and your past, but also connecting with the modern society and the systems. And I think that's how assimilation works, and I think that's why it's been so effective in Australia, and it leaves people, a lot of Aboriginal Australians, in this horrific position where they feel like they have a lack of identity, and they sit in this limbo between being a part of the Aboriginal community, but also being a part of the white dominant community. I sidetracked a little bit.
No, I get what you're saying, and I thought you would actually go in that direction, because it's a curiosity of mine, because I've heard that from. It's interesting. You hear that from, let's say, people who classify themselves as biracial, right? And they'll speak about the interesting advantages they might be able to incur for themselves from their supposedly dominant side, and but also the rejections they get there, and also, you know, there's this all interesting identity crisis they have with maybe their black side or the Asian side, you know, where they're not really fully embraced, and so you hit on something where you're almost sort of isolated, you know, and
Definitely.
you have to carve out an identity of your own. I would suspect it could, I mean, there's a potential to make you jaded almost, you know, having to bounce from two worlds.
Yeah, exactly. That's, and I think it's a thing as well, being idea of, lack of a better term, a double agent. You know, you've got the ability to infiltrate these systems and you know, sort of then implement your ideas and your cultural backgrounds and your heritage, but at the same time you risk this reputation of somebody who's also just assimilating to the white culture at the same time. So you don't, it's very difficult to navigate that fine line.
I appreciate that. Rigo, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was. I played with my mic there for a bit because I thought I might, and then I thought, no, I've spoken a lot. I wanted to hear what Harley had to say. I was actually going to ask how, you know, Harley, you feel you're received by people from a dark-skinned African heritage rather than a light-skinned African heritage. How are you received in terms of when you present your heritage?
I think it's very circumstantial. You know, you meet a lot of people, like anyone. You know, some people are very welcoming and others are not, and it depends on the person and what their opinions are and their background and their upbringing is. I think within Australia we have a very strong First Nations community and an acceptance for everyone and an understanding that this wasn't a choice for a lot of people. The fact that the color of their skin isn't a representation of how they integrate with their culture. It was something that was taken from us, and so we fight and we battle together to try and reclaim that identity.
I think the reason I ask that is because I find there's a lot of misunderstanding or lack of understanding from people who are seen to be more indigenous African around the world. So whether in Australia or the United States or in Africa itself or in Britain, people who are of a more darker complexion, let's just say, or have more African phenotypes, you know, they sometimes feel you're trying on a bit because I'm a mixed African, so I've got African and Asian heritage. But being a mixed anything, whether you mix white and black, as they call it, or you know, mixed anything, means that you can move from one side to the other to not necessarily to be accepted by, and definitely not to be. You are not accepted by either side completely as the way they accept themselves. If you were to call them sides, they are, you know, they are in full acceptance of themselves as belonging to this side or that side, and you are kind of like the thing that floats in between, but you will never belong in any one. And to me, I used to think that was a disadvantage, but actually having African and Asian heritage, I identify more on my African side because that's where I've lived my life. And also I feel more connected to Africa than I am to Asia. And also I was born in Africa, so who knows? But having that ability to go, well, I am both, opens your mind up to thinking, you know, less in a, you know, echo chamber and more about humanity itself. So I think we're the great humanitarians, mixed people are the great humanitarians of the world, because when people get too fanatical on one side, we can say, hold on a minute, I'm both sides, you know, I have other heritage, I'm not just one side. And there is that danger of that single side narrative, you know, where people go, I'm white or I'm black, you know, which we simplify as that, and there's everything in between, or I am gay, or I'm straight, or I'm trans, or I'm this, you know, that we tend to take a corner and fight from that corner. And sometimes we just need to cross over to the other side and see what the other side is saying a little bit more. And I think we have that ability to do that because we're constantly, you know, going from here to there and listening to both sides and then trying to formulate an understanding.
I really appreciate that. And I think that's really the spirit of this conversation. It's been very enlightening. Last question. We've all been witnessing, of course, the social uprisings that were spurred here in the United States with regards to policing and state-sanctioned violence. And we've heard the outcry, Black Lives Matter. And what we've witnessed is that it's had ramifications globally. And what we further witness is there has been somewhat of an awakening with our so-called white neighbors. Many, even within the circus world, as you know, this particular platform is actually operated and founded by two white women. And they are very adamant about using it to really highlight any social indignities, along with, of course, being a forum for all things circus. So I'd like to know from each of you, what is, or rather, what do you require of an ally? So we'll start with Alcini. What do you require of an ally? Unmute. There you go.
Is that good? Cool. Jonathan, thank you so much. And also, I'd like to thank this platform, CircusTalk, and what you guys doing. I feel like you are uniting whole world. What you guys doing, and then specifically with the circus industry. And I think it's something it mean to me a lot to be part of this panel and talk about my thought, how I feel, and I like to express myself as a human being and basing on my experience. And so, like once I come in here in Canada, I I came here in a young age, so I most like I grew up on my time in white community in Montreal. So in Montreal, it is a lot of like a circus people there from all of the world, from all of the world. But I never felt like one day, I swear, feel unwelcome in that country. I never felt because I feel like they unite together and they respect all the circus performers, no matter how background you're coming from, no matter you don't speak the same language they speak. Where I'm coming from, Guinea, this the country colonized by French people. But for me, in that country, I speak five languages in that country. So on being in Canada, I have learned so many things. I've learned so many people from different backgrounds. So I never feel one day and someone just straight like, I'm not gonna work with this guy. It's because he's coming Africa, or maybe he doesn't speak in the same language or whatever it is. My country, we're studying French. That's why we're studying in the school. There's no English. I've been starting to speak English just 4 years ago. So, and then here, so in Canada here, so there's a lot of circus people from China, from Australia, from all of the country, and then you see they unite together and they respect as you being a circus artist. Doesn't matter your skill, doesn't matter, but they do respect the fact that you are in this platform, circus performer. They respect your culture, they respect your idea, you respect your energy and everything about. That's why I love it. And then once I see and this platform also just same like this. So because this platform in CircusTalk is all of people from all of the global. If you're looking for African performer, things like this, they're all here. So I want this to be more highlight. I want this to be more protective. I want this to be as the much you guys doing inspiring other youth and also inspiring other country, different continent. And then I want this to be more. So let's talk about this. Um, I work with so many different company. They are white, but I never feel in welcome. And sometimes I understand one why some people don't want to hire and say like it's a black people or maybe I sometimes this is something that I look at it. Something I feel I do know when you have a business, you want to bring something into your or into your work into your to your guests, you want to make something different, but you're also looking for something what you're looking for and what's good for your business and what idea you want that to be fit. Okay, and then don't get me wrong, if you say you don't want to have a black person and that particular idea, I'm not gonna get upset as you doing like many like in a cup maybe in a free time, yes. But if you keep doing this, if you keep doing this, and also for me it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for me because the first your guests it could be Chinese people, It could be someone from Australia. It could be someone from Africa. It could be someone from different other continent. Okay, so these are the people coming to your show. These are the people not just coming to see because you are a performer. These are the people coming to see and to learn something. When they go home, they can also or study of something what they see as a story, and they can live through with this as a real message, as a good positive things, and they can live with this. Okay, that's why I want many of the Circus production company and to think about this and to work like this way. If you want to unite this world, and if you care about this circus industry, and you want to make a difference, you don't want to work with any racial way and by treating people. If you want to send something in the right thing into this society, this is you have to look at it. Okay, because these are the people coming to your show. They would like to see their hero. Chinese guy from the show. Oh, this is our Chinese hero. You know, we're happy to see it. And when you see the African people, like, oh yes, yes, hell yeah. The one thing when I love most of the circus here in this broad, universal circus. This is what I'm gonna give the idea. Universal circus. And universal circus is a finder for a black guy. Okay. This it's a black circus, bro. I never feel like it's all in black circus. I never feel like it's all in black circus. This company work with the white different color in that show, in their show, and I feel like many of the companies, circus company, they have to learn from that company also, because this is how all war about it. And these are the company also, and they're giving chance to our people. When I say our people, it could be like black people and a white youth also, because we're all the same. It's a human, we're all the same. And these are the kids coming to the show. They are white, they are black, they are yellow, whatever color it is, and they want to be part of the show. And this is feel like they want to make a dream. They want to hope one day they can learn something like this. You know, not just like because you have a company, it's all a black company. It's all black company. It's a, you know, if you want to make something different in this world and you want to do something very specific, unique, and then like very something that you can educate people, like a very good education to people. Because what are we doing right now? Even a little talk of single of you guys, you might think it's nothing, but we are changing the world. We are educating people. What are we saying right now? Doesn't matter you don't speak the same language better. I'm not English American native speaker, but I like to express myself how human being. I wish I would know more better word to say and to express, and you guys could understand. So in my experience, I seen a lot of things. It's even the movement of the Black Lives Matter. Okay, let me say this. The Black Lives Matter for me, what I see, I know many people don't want to hear about this, but when we say Black Lives Matter, it doesn't mean white lives doesn't matter. No, we all know how black people were struggling, and we all know how black people are being down. We all know this. Can you white folks give a chance to the black people? We can fight this racial things about equality. Can we get the chance for this and to fight together, to unite the world and to be together? To be together, because this is all about it. And if we don't do this, we all gonna be separate. We're gonna be individual. And one day your child, Jonathan, is gonna fall in love into white girl. Okay? And then how this is gonna be possible? Your child want to be married to the white folks girl. It's hard because you know your child want to be loving, you want to be someone who see, I want to be with that person, but you know we're not united this is no love. We can't move forward. We can't move forward with this. We have to help each other, specifically with what's going on with right now in the Black Lives Matter. When we say Black Lives Matter, please educate yourself. If you don't understand, watch the story what's going on years and years ago, how black people were so difficult, like so hard, and they were struggling and to find the liberty, and 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 it's so hard. And finally, we get into this. We want to get the help. We want to get the help from these white folks people, and please and we want to get the more support. We're not saying just because we're saying Black Lives Matter and then we don't give a fuck with the white lives matter. No, it's not. It's the wrong way.
Brother,
It is the wrong way. It is the wrong way. I want to this world and to be unite specifically, and what I've seen right now in my experience, and I feel like in the racial things is a jump into the circus industry, and I'm worried about my future. Can everyone hear me?
Somebody has the sound. I don't know if it's Rico's mic. There you go. Thank you. Thank you very much, Alcini. Thank you.
I would like to finish one single thing. So, and then for me, I'm worried about the future. I'm worried about the next generation. It's not just because the next generation could be black folks. No, it could be white. It could be Chinese. It could be all different color. Because I'm worried about it. Because now I feel like in the racial things and jump into the circus things. I'm afraid with this, and I'm so afraid about the future and generation. Because if the racists in the circus industry, I swear to God, we're not gonna unite, and the world is going to be messed up. It's gonna be individually separate, and everyone's going to work with all in black people, and everyone's gonna work with all in white people. It doesn't look very. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look with this, and it's not gonna give a hope to our next generation. We have to give a chance. What are you doing in your business? If you have your business, please, not just you, not just you. Just do it for the world. Do it for the Quran. Just do it for unite the world. This is our mission. We need to respect our mission. We need to protect it. We need to protect our mission. We need to know what is our mission. We're not just here in this platform and to talk about the political thing. We're here to unite the world. This is all about us. And specifically what's going on in this world right now, they need the help. The help, it's ours. It's us. It's us. And to show the world, we all together. No matter how color you are, how language you speak, how many languages you speak, we all the same. We doing the same thing in the circus. We doing the same thing. You know, when you make the circus folks, you don't want to just train and not say hello or not say, hey, how are you? How is it? How's your background? I love to connect with the people. I love to just dialogue with the different and background people. I feel like I'm studying myself. I'm educating myself. I don't know the soda about the Chinese, but being here, I learned so many things from each of you guys' story. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for all of you guys, and I respect all of your job. I hope we're gonna move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm a bit jealous because you speak 4 languages and you have great biceps. So now I have to do push-ups and get Rosetta Stone.
Thank you.
Juno, what do you require of an ally?
Well, I really believe cisgender people should be ethically committed to creating better worlds for transgender people, as we should all be committed to the fight against racism and ethnocide and so on. We need these changes now. I just can't wait many more years for that to happen. So I believe cis people should learn about gender diversity, and they should help us creating platforms to discuss these issues more openly, so that we won't do that alone. And here in Brazil, trans people are usually in the poverty zone, especially Black and Indigenous trans people. So social justice is also about wealth redistribution. We need more job opportunities, and we need to get fairly paid when people hire us. We need public recognition of our worth and our works, and we also need support because of all the violence we face every time. I believe those are the main points for being an ally.
That's appreciated. Rico, what do you require of an ally?
Okay. I was going to contribute to what my brother was saying there. Sorry, I know I'm very terrible with names, so I know my brother from Guinea.
Alcini.
Can you remind me the name?
Alcini.
Alseni.
Yes, Alseni.
Alseni. Sorry, forgive me. Yeah, so I was going to say that it's almost like preaching to the converted. We are all on that page, I would imagine, in terms of wanting a better world. We are all making a better world. We're totally 100% with you there. But I think some of the solutions to create that better world that we are individually applying, or maybe in our groups, individual groups applying, is something I'm really interested in. We are, able to do great things, for entertainment, for community, for, jobs, and, creating jobs for people who wouldn't normally work out in the outside world. They have a very particular way about them, but they're perfect for circus, or perfect for skate parks or whatever it is that we do. One of the things that I wanted to say is that we are creating a library of African heritage. It's a library and a kitchen, which is very, very important, in the sense that there's so much food that is not explored that comes out of Africa, and it's got healing properties as well. And that's why I was remarking on your physique. A lot of African people have incredible physiques, and also the illnesses, that we're facing in the overdeveloped world, have got to such a level that African people can provide the answer all around the world, not just African in the continent or motherland. So this library is called Timbuktu. I don't know if you've heard of that place, Timbuktu. It's actually in your part of Africa, not far from Guinea. Timbuktu is very, very important, the history of it, and the fact that the universities were created there in North Africa. The oldest universities where our scholars, taught the world astronomy, taught the world philosophy, which, when we say the word philosophy, a lot of people think Greek and European philosophy. And when I was actually a member of the philosophical club, because I wanted to find out what our African people had done, there was no mention of any African philosophy. They'd rather call it mythology or spiritualism or something like that. This is the corner that we need to go into, people. Within Circus, within anything that we have, always use what you have in front of you to make the change that you want to see. We can create incredible things with knowledge. And if the knowledge is actually coming from a place of fact and not fanaticism, if it's coming from a place where it's not just because I'm dark skinned that I would be saying that, where a light-skinned scholar can actually say, yes, this is true. Mansa Musa was the richest man who's ever lived, and that kind of knowledge. These are facts that we can use. The inventor of the traffic lights that we use today, or the gas mask in the Second World War and First World War, that African people have actually done. So instead of preaching to the converted, or preaching information that people might dispute or go, oh, well, whatever, you would say that, wouldn't you? Because, I'm not a racist, and people get all defensive. I'm not a racist, I'm not against you, I like you, and also you're a great circus performer, I'm your friend, blah, blah. They don't understand any of that, because the education system has been created out of a system of oppression, not only do they oppress us or the dark-skinned people, they also oppress their own people first. They used to kidnap European people and send them to go and fight wars, send them to go and mine gold and stuff like that, to build an industrial economy. That came out of that. So if we can get that message out through Circus, I don't know how we'll do this, but personally within Dynamics and my local African association, we're creating a library in the kitchen where we want to educate people on the facts on African artistry. We call it our story. Not his story, but our story. So we want to educate people on the facts of what African people did for the world, how those pyramids were built. Believe me, we know how the pyramids were built, but it will never be promoted unless we promote it ourselves. Our people had intelligence. So the problem with racism is that we are assumed to be of an inferior intellect. All right. So how do we, within Circus, within whatever we're doing, prove that these are the facts? Let's use the science. Let's use the artistry, our story. Thank you. Thank you. I'll mute now. I'll mute.
I appreciate that very much. Taiwan, please tell us, what do you require of an ally?
For me, there's just three simple points. The first one is conversation, like what we're doing now. That conversation needs to be started, and I think it has been. It's more important than we thought than ever. Second is very deep mutual understanding. Like I totally agree what Rico just said. There are more knowledge than we know, and we acknowledge it as a knowledge. Yeah. And the third is to probably the most important one is to identify the responsibilities as human in this era. No matter it's about social justice or environment. And with these 3 points, I think we can start from here to the next steps, no matter it's about circus or creation, arts, or anything else.
Thank you very much. The Waka Waka man, Harley Man, what do you require of an ally?
I think this is an interesting question, and I mean, there are a number of things that go into it. For me, something that I've noticed sort of recently, particularly during the Black Lives Matter movement, is that everyone is very quick to advertise how much they're doing for the community, which is great. I think being vocal is very important, but I think, like many people, actions speak louder than words. And so changing your Instagram status doesn't really help me, especially when we end up 4 weeks down the track and no one cares anymore. So I think an ally should be constantly persistent, somebody who is trying to make a difference and isn't looking for recognition for it, and they're just doing it because they believe in equality and humanity.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, one and only William Fortune, what do you require of an ally?
What do I require of an ally? I've got 5 major points of what is required of an ally. One is restoring the history. As Rico said, instead of whitewashing our history, let's bring back the color to our history. Let's understand the influences of all that involved in getting to where we are now. Embracing our differences and our similarities, accepting what we have. I mean, I identify as a Black man, and that's a choice, not African American, because I grew up in New Jersey and I know more about New Jersey than I know about Africa. I've never been there. I want to go. So I'm putting out to the world, invite me to your country. I will come as an ambassador. Embrace our differences and our similarities. Another one that Rico put out there is the food. Partake in the cuisine. When we understand how each other eats, how we nourish ourselves, we nourish each other. When we can sit down and break bread with each other or share a tea with each other, then we start to understand and respect not just where we are, but where we've come from and all that's brought. We bring the ancestors into that tea. We bring the ancestors into our food. And I know that 7 Fingers of the Hand have Cuisine and Confessions. Very powerful show because there's an aroma that goes around a theater when that's happening. And that opens up a door that creates another sensory connection that we all have. Listen. If you want to know how to make change, talk to the people who are disenfranchised and listen to what they need. And then, as Harley says, and then put those words into action. Go ahead and make those. Don't just put the statement out there, but live the statement. It's one thing to say, I love you, and slap somebody. That's not love. Let's see that put into action. If you're really going to embrace the differences and the similarities, let's see that in action. Diplomacy. Invite the ambassadors in and send your ambassadors out. And your ambassadors go out not to change the system, but to bring back resources and to use those resources in order to unite and not exclude. And then the last was exchange information. All those things that we just said are exchanges of information. how we exchange that information, not just throwing out there and saying this is the way it's going to be, but an ally is going to be there and reinforce that information coming back in and stepping into that space of change. Change is uncomfortable, growth is uncomfortable, and yet the results are amazing. When we are united in our fight and our love and our desire for and our passion to create and express, only wonderful things will come of that. We may not understand those wonderful things because there's all different kinds of art that's created, but only wonderful things can come of that. And hopefully all those wonderful things will speak to all the different differences that we have and all the similarities that we have.
I really appreciate you, gentlemen. Each and every one of you is a fine ambassador for your part of the world and your particular causes. And as was said about the great Joe Louis, you're a credit to your race, the human race. We want to thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we thank each of our panelists for attending and sharing their perspective. For in the words of the late, great United States Congressman and freedom fighter John Lewis, ours is not the struggle of one day, 1 week, or 1 year. Ours is the struggle of a lifetime, or maybe even many lifetimes. And each one of us in every generation must do our part. The wake-up call for inclusion is CircusTalk's response to the equality crisis around the world. Those of you who may not know, CircusTalk is an inclusive, independent, and international online network for the circus industry. CircusTalk's mission is to create a level playing field for this industry and democratize access to information. If you haven't subscribed yet, CircusTalk invites you to do so today at CircusTalk.com. Take advantage of their 60% COVID discount on the yearly pro membership. As always, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, keep the circus alive inside you. Thank you very much.